Welcome to the Climate Commission podcast, Climate Chats with Students. I'm your host, Sonia Perez, and I am the Climate Commission Officer for the Climate Commission. The Climate Commission is a partnership between Association of Colleges, Guild HE, EAUC, and Universities UK, and we're working to coordinate climate action in the sector. We've been working to do this for the past year, and now we are looking ahead to COP26. And so the purpose of the show is to highlight students' stories and journeys with sustainability. Today we're speaking with Roz Bradshaw, who is a geography student at the University of Reading. Enjoy! Today we are sitting with Rosalind Bradshaw, or Roz, and I am really excited to talk to you. So, quick introduction, you just graduated from the University of Reading in geography.
I did indeed, yes.
And how are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm not too bad actually. It's a bit crazy to me that I've finished now, but I'm excited to see the next steps.
Was it a 3-year degree?
It was, yeah. But I loved every second of it. I wish I was. I don't know. I'm thinking of going back to a master's, but I feel like I need a bit of time away from education at the moment to.
Like a breather. Yeah, I think that's quite important. Why did you decide to study geography? Because I actually kind of did geography as well, so I'd be interested in knowing why you studied it, and was it something that you always kind of knew that you were going to study, or did you fall into it? What's that sort of story?
So I actually knew since about GCSEs. I had a really great GCSE geography teacher who really inspired me to go through it with A-levels, and I thought going through A-levels, I was like, oh, actually, I'm getting grades. I could actually do this as a degree. And I thought, after discussing with like the geography teachers and my peers and stuff, and I knew other people that had done geography degrees, I thought actually it's got loads of great benefits alongside it being really interesting. I've always loved the side of which it connects like the people in the environment, and it's learning about those different processes, not only that happens within the environment, so like the water cycle, climate change, stuff like this, but it also connects that with people. I really love thinking about how we can make an impact, and how also, for example, that we can change those environmental processes for it to be more efficient. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting, and I think it can be applied to so many different things, not only like currently, but also within jobs and stuff like this. I thought it just suited me to a T. So
yeah, that's sort of I felt a similar way. So, yeah, you kind of right off the bat mentioned that your interest in geography had something to do with your interest in the climate and the climate crisis and how people interact with that. So I was wondering, when did you first become interested in the climate crisis? Did it happen through geography, through your degree, or was it something before? I guess it's like the chicken and the egg. What came first? Was it geography for you, or was it understanding the climate crisis?
I think geography, of course. I think I was quite lucky with Reading that there's always a strong focus with climate, which is why I really chose Reading. We've got great lecturers who have done loads of research on climate change and all the different social political processes surrounding that. But actually, my interest in climate change kind of goes back a bit before GCSEs and before all of that, where I was part of I used to lead a guide group, and as part of my kind of sessions, for example, I would learn and I would educate all these young girls on climate change. There's so many great things you could do as part of girl guiding to a surrounding environment, and not many of them actually knew a lot, because it doesn't really get taught in like year 7 and 8, for example, not as much as I think it should. So I started to really have that like want and need to educate people on it, and really work towards education around climate change and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow, could you talk a bit more about your experience teaching younger girls about, like, what did you do, what kind of activities, what was that like?
Yeah, sure. So it wasn't I didn't really go into like the obviously like scientific side of it, of like greenhouse gases, but I said like, hey, like, what do you think happens to that water bottle that you use at school, for example, and how do you think that impacts I don't know, people in like the Pacific Islands or something like this, or stuff like this, and it would just go on. It just made them more aware, I think, of the wider process and what happens beyond where the town we live and stuff. We live in quite a small town where it really is focused. I don't think many people realise the impacts of what they do beyond where we live, and I think it was just really important to me to make them realise, like, hey, actually, if I really excessively take a car to school every day, that could actually have an impact later on in life. And I thought, I didn't know that when I was their age, when I was about 10 or 11. So I thought, I thought from in my head it was important for them. I would have wanted to know. So I thought they enjoyed learning it. So
that's really cool. And I think it's interesting what you said about, like, you didn't really focus on the actual greenhouse gas emissions and, you know, this kind of science side. But I think that's really cool because I think often, especially with children, that might just kind of alienate them from being interested in the climate. I mean, not always, of course. I just think it's interesting that you kind of went a different route. And
yeah,
no, I really like that. Geography is to me, it's a really interesting degree because it's one of the main degrees in my head, at least, that kind of interacts with the climate crisis. But of course, like, lots of geographers don't necessarily have an interest in it. So it doesn't always interact with the climate crisis. But do you mind telling me a bit about how your degree does interact with climate action and understanding the climate crisis? So I guess what kind of courses you're taking, and have you chosen to take those courses, or have they been mandatory courses?
Yeah, sure. So throughout my degree, it was kind of, we had the mandatory courses which would build like key skills and stuff like that for like our dissertations and stuff. But we could really tailor our different our optional modules around our interests. But I particularly enjoyed it was these modules called quaternary science. So it was looking through climate change from thousands of years ago, from the past ice age. And it's actually really interesting because in the end, as I work towards that third year module where it's kind of the top kind of knowledge and application stuff, we started to apply it to modern day climate change. And it was really interesting in the fact that actually, although of course the modern day climate change is a lot more intense compared to those past climate change where it got warmer over thousands of years instead of literally hundreds. But I found it was interesting in the way we could apply, for example, how different ecosystems interacted and how actually we could really start to predict how they would really approach the warming of the climate and what we can really do to help them adapt in the best way, really. Yeah, I found that really interesting, really, in how we could really look at the past climate change and apply that to what's happening right now, really. Yeah, I really love that.
That's so interesting. And so geography gives you the lens to have that understanding. Were there students that you, like your peers that were also in geography, that kind of were able to avoid learning about climate change? Or would you say that all of you sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of just interested in the nature of geography as something that's really related to climate change and how people perceive it if they're not interested in climate change. Sorry, that's such a, oh gosh, that's such a complicated way of saying it.
No, I get what you mean. It kind of depends. I think as I went through university, of course, the variety of modules available. So I went down the climate change, and I did the climate change management and all of this stuff like this, and then I went through the quaternary. But I think a few of my peers, for example, if they were just a physical geographer, for example, it would be a very different side of anything. So they would do some more like of the carbon recording and stuff, which wasn't really my kind of thing, but I was more interested in the people and the interaction with the climate change. But I guess at Reading, yeah, we were really lucky that everything was kind of centered around climate change. We've been involved for years and years recording all these different greenhouse gases for like tens of years, and yeah, so it really is centered around change, but yeah, it really is.
Interesting. And so, aside from university and academics, you mentioned that you've done some volunteering in Costa Rica with the
Okay.
charity to advance sustainability. So, can you tell me a bit more about that, and how did you come across this opportunity? And also, how has it contributed to your journey with sustainability?
Sure. Last summer I was lucky enough to go with Rally International over to Costa Rica, and I wouldn't have chosen to go with any other charity. They honestly, I heard about it because my dad actually did it when he was in his 20s as well,
Oh,
and I
wow.
would hear, yeah. So he went over to New Zealand for his, and I'd hear all the stories and how much he impacted where the community he worked with, and I was like, I'm going to do it while I'm at university. I think you get so much time off in the summer, very luckily. So I was like, I don't want to sit around and just do an intern or do a summer job. I was like, I want to actually put what I'm learning in these lessons to work really. And I think these we worked in this amazing indigenous community called Darignac, and basically they just needed a bit of support with their waste management, and they didn't their waste management was pretty much they would just burn whatever they had. um, so coming in we were like, oh yeah, that's great, but have you ever thought about, for example, having a compost, and that would help with growing this? So they were great, and they were so open, and we'd talk to the whole community about all this compost and
Yeah.
how great it is to reuse stuff. Like they were relying on like plastic a lot of the time because it's obviously the cheapest thing, and we were like, well, you can reuse this plastic in
Yeah.
different ways, which goes past your water collection, and you can use it to, for example, insulate your home, or you can reuse it, I don't know, make some toys from it for your kids and stuff like this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really was amazing. Yeah, I loved it so
So
much.
it's a lot of like capacity building for the communities you were. So did you choose Costa Rica, or was that something? Was that the main, I guess, trip
Uh,
this year?
yeah, so they Rally International, it's all with young people, so you can choose within Costa Rica, Nepal or Tanzania.
Hmm.
um, but I thought Costa Rica, to me, they really focus on the sustainability and the deforestation. They
Hmm.
a lot of the time, actually, Costa Rica's got this amazing rainforest and stuff like this, but a lot of the time actually these indigenous people, they don't realize actually what they can do for, like, for example, they absolutely wiped out the whole sloth community in their area, and they just needed a bit of support, and they come to Rally and say, hey, we really need your help with this. We've got no sloths and we don't know why, and
Hmm.
stuff like this. So we have to come in and say, oh, maybe that's because, for example, you're burning, or and stuff like this, or you're over hunting and stuff like this. So yeah, I really chose Costa Rica because it was really working with the communities, and I always wanted to go there as well, which was a plus as well. So
How did it sort of contribute to your journey with sustainability? And I'm going to ask you this next, but your plans for the future. So I guess alongside your academic knowledge, of climate change through geography, how did this experience in Costa Rica, kind of advance your climate action?
sure. So I think it really went alongside what we learn in lectures. We had quite a lot of focus on the governance and the routes towards climate change management, alongside all these different developed countries and countries that still need a little more help with development. And I found that a lot of the time that actually, although yes, the UN and stuff like this is great, actually working with the communities is more impactful for the long term. I think education is so key when trying to battle climate change, and really finding a solution which not only a community wants to do, but actually understands why
Yeah.
they're doing it. I think and it really made me go into these lectures and understand the different routes and how, for example, these bottom-up approaches, they actually do work. And I've got real life case studies that I've actually experienced in real life, which I found really great and really enhanced my understanding and want to make a change in the future, really.
Yeah, that's great. So it's like you're not just learning theoretical concepts, you're sort of applying ideas to solutions, to real life problems and solutions.
Definitely, yeah. I could go into my seminars and discuss about all the solutions that we talked through with the communities, and say, yeah, I actually was in Costa Rica. I was there, and these people they came to us and they needed our help. And I like to think we came out with a positive impact on them. Yeah, so it really made me really motivated for my future and what I want to go in, really. So
I guess that kind of segues into one of my last few questions, which is how do you see your passion for sustainability and also your degree in geography coming into play in your future? So what would you like to do, and how will this help you get there, essentially?
I think when I think about climate change, I think about every little helps. I think it's not always about the big wins. Yeah, it's great that all these big transnational companies are going carbon neutral and stuff, but it's also what can we do in these little communities that make just that impact. So in the future, I'd love to work for these small scale kind of solutions, which, for example, the paper straws, I think that's a great example of what originally was a small scale solution has been scaled up to the bigger thing. And I think, the impact that's had on plastic waste and stuff is great. I think, I really do think that all the small wins all do add up, and I'd love to be part of a company that perhaps really works towards those small wins and really working with the communities in making that innovative change towards climate change and educating people on anything.
I guess that's just a really nice example of a very tangible something you can do with a geography degree.
Yeah, definitely.
My last question for you is, how would you like to see geography classes and geography in higher education taught to, really prepare graduates and people like yourself for futures in sustainability?
I'd love geography to be taught in a way which gives it real life application. I think it's great learning about all these different statistics with climate change and all the scientific side behind it, but I'd love to see a real change in which, okay, you learn all these statistics, now here's where you can make it happen post-graduation, whether that's going into postgraduate education or into a graduate job, for example. I'd love to see, for example, here's some really good companies which are working towards climate change, which for example, this module leads great into, or even perhaps we were quite lucky, we had some seminars with some great people who work within like the social change regarding climate change and stuff like this. Seminars like that, I think, if they're more available to everyone and universities across the UK, I think that really helps in making people excited about getting a job and thinking there's actual jobs available where you can really make a difference, whether that's just within your company or within a whole community, for example, or a whole nation, or heck, even globally. Like, it's just, education on how it's applied within the business world actually would be really great. I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a move away from the theoretical to the more applied would be really helpful.
I think, climate change is entering into not just the scientific, it's being in the labs and stuff. It's every single day in our life. I think every single thing we do, every action contributes, whether that's positively or negatively, to the climate change issue at the moment. And I think especially during COVID and stuff, and the people have really had their eye open in terms of the plastic waste with this. And even if it's just helping with modules, even if it was just similar to that, educating people on the issues surrounding COVID and climate change, I think that would have been a really great module. I would have taken something.
I wonder if that's going to be a module in the next few years.
I would take that. I think it's so interesting.
I definitely think there's going to be a lot of interesting, like, I guess, learnings, like geographical and like sociological learnings from COVID in a few years. Yeah,
definitely. It'd be so interesting to see. And I'd love to be involved in something.
Just like a cheeky question from me. Do you have any idea what you want to do your master's in? If you do want to do a master's, is that something you've thought about?
I've kind of thought about it. So the way I think I can see myself accessing climate change and stuff is through, I did my dissertation on food waste and the impact of that. So I find that actually the supply chain has a lot more, food supply chain has a lot more environmental impacts than people originally think. And it's actually one of the easiest things to change. So I think a master's in supply chain management, or even like business management, for example, I think I'm steering towards, but we shall see. Who knows?
That's really exciting. I think that is definitely a really, really impactful route that you can take.
Definitely, yes, I do agree. I think everyone has to consume food at the end of the day, so why not make it sustainable and climate change friendly? So
and as you said, like, it's also one of the easier kind of things to do. Like, it's a bit more straightforward than other areas. I think, at least. I'm not like an expert.
No, 100%. Even if it's just the way we dispose of food, it's definitely easier than plastic, I can say. So why not make it one of the most environmental ways of disposing of food, of waste? So
thank you so much for chatting.